The inner world of someone who struggles with saying no often appears calm and accommodating from the outside. A simple request comes in, a small favor is asked, and the answer is always yes. But beneath that agreeable surface, there's a quiet tension, a tightening in the chest, a subtle flicker of fear that's easy to overlook. This isn't just about being kind or helpful. It's rooted in something deeper, a psychological pattern shaped over many years. For many, the inability to decline requests doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like survival. It's a way to keep life steady and predictable. This tendency often begins early, in childhood moments where approval felt like safety and disapproval felt like emotional distance. When someone learns that being agreeable is the path to avoiding conflict or discomfort, they begin to associate their worth with being useful, accommodating, and easy to handle. Even in adulthood, that conditioning remains. It shows up in small, daily choices, answering messages immediately despite exhaustion, apologizing for things that aren't their responsibility, or quietly setting aside their own needs to avoid being seen as difficult or ungrateful. The psychology here isn't about weakness, it's about emotional wiring. People who can't say no are often deeply empathetic. They sense other people's emotions intensely. They're attuned to shifts in tone, to disappointment, to unspoken expectations. Their minds anticipate reactions before anything happens, imagining all the ways a refusal might be received. But when empathy for others becomes stronger than empathy for oneself, a slow self-abandonment begins. It happens quietly, one yes at a time. You see it in friendships where they always show up, even when tired. You see it in relationships where they carry more than their share of emotional labor. You see it at work where they take on extra tasks not out of desire, but from fear of seeming uncommitted. These repeated choices accumulate, shaping a life driven more by obligation than intention. People who struggle with saying no often grew up believing their presence had to be earned, that affection was conditional, and cooperation was the safest route to being valued. Even now, the mind carries those lessons into new situations, trying to protect them from a fear that once felt very real. Admitting this to oneself brings a certain heaviness. It's the realization that this isn't just a habit, it's a psychological instinct formed long ago. It becomes part of how they view relationships, a set of quiet rules followed without question. They feel responsible for the emotional climate around them, for the comfort of others, for making things easier for everyone. That sense of duty becomes so internalized they rarely question it. Underneath it all is a deeper fear that saying no might reveal conflict, disappointment, or emotional distance. It's not about weakness, but about a history of trying to keep things steady, to avoid being the source of tension, to maintain balance even at personal cost. The world rarely notices this internal struggle. Most people don't hear the hesitation before the yes, or see the quiet conversation happening inside before the answer is given. There's also a subtle fear of losing identity. Many who can't say no have built their sense of self around being reliable. They worry that refusing might make others see them differently, less valuable, less needed, less appreciated. When your worth is tied to being agreeable, saying no can feel like rejecting the version of yourself you believe others depend on. Psychologically, this relates to how people internalize expectations from their environment. When someone grows up seeking approval, their brain becomes finely tuned to external cues. They learn to mirror what others want, to adapt before being asked. Over time, this becomes automatic. They say yes instinctively, without pausing to consider what they truly want. This creates a unique kind of loneliness. A person can feel surrounded by others yet disconnected from themselves. After years of prioritizing everyone else, it becomes difficult to even recognize their own preferences. When they finally pause to ask themselves what they want, the answer feels distant and unclear. Many who can't say no feel as though they're living two lives, an external one where they appear kind, helpful, and dependable, and an inner one where they feel quietly drained. They rarely express how much they're carrying. They hide their exhaustion, not wanting to inconvenience anyone or become a burden. So they carry their tiredness in silence, telling themselves it's just part of who they are. So many people say yes while their heart whispers no. They believe agreeing keeps things stable, but deep down they know it slowly erodes their inner strength. They tell themselves they'll stop after this one request, after this one favor. But then another arrives and the pattern continues. Not because they want to, but because the discomfort of saying no feels heavier than the cost of saying yes. Empathy-driven fear plays a role here. Those who struggle to refuse imagine the emotional impact of their refusal so vividly it becomes overwhelming. They picture disappointment, confusion, misunderstanding. Even if none of that would actually happen, the imagined scenario feels too real to ignore. So they say yes to avoid the emotional turbulence their mind predicts. But this isn't just about keeping others happy. It's about avoiding the internal storm that saying no triggers, the guilt, the sensation of letting someone down, even when the request was unreasonable. The brain isn't being dramatic, it's trying to protect them from emotional discomfort. This isn't about blame, it's about understanding a deeply human pattern. Beneath every yes that didn't feel right, there's a story, someone who learned to sacrifice themselves for stability, who learned to be agreeable before learning to be authentic, who learned that being easy to love meant being easy to handle. If you've ever lived this way, you know the hardest part isn't the request itself. It's the moment after the yes, when you walk away feeling a little smaller, as if you've betrayed yourself in some quiet way. You realize your willingness to accommodate others is slowly turning into a habit of abandoning your own boundaries. But here's what's important. People who can't say no aren't weak, they're deeply attuned. They're often among the most emotionally intelligent people in the room, thoughtful, aware, perceptive. They sense tension before others do. They notice unspoken expressions. They bring calm, understanding, and harmony. The problem isn't their empathy, it's the imbalance between empathy for others and empathy for themselves. If you've ever struggled to say no, it's not because you lack preferences. It's because you've spent years deprioritizing them. It's not because you're incapable of boundaries. It's because your relationship with boundaries has been shaped by experiences where expressing your needs felt risky or burdensome. When this internal conflict continues long enough, it becomes part of your emotional identity. But deep down, you know it isn't sustainable. You feel the quiet fatigue that grows with every unspoken desire. You feel the subtle ache of putting yourself second, again and again. You feel the slow accumulation of emotional exhaustion from giving more than you have. There comes a moment when a person begins to feel the quiet consequences of always saying yes. It doesn't arrive suddenly. It comes like slow erosion, like a shoreline being pulled back grain by grain. One day, they realize they're tired in a way rest can't fix, not physically tired, but emotionally worn down. It's a tiredness that comes from being stretched too thin, from giving too much of themselves in countless small ways. This exhaustion is subtle but powerful. It changes how a person feels in their own skin. They question why they feel disconnected from themselves. Small tasks feel heavier than they should. They feel separate from the world, even when surrounded by people. And it all traces back to the simple habit of never being able to say no. Many assume that saying yes keeps relationships peaceful. But what they don't realize is that someone who can't say no often ends up in relationships built on imbalance. They attract people who expect constant availability because that's the pattern they've presented. They become the dependable one, the one who always shows up, who never asks for much in return. Over time, this role becomes both comforting and suffocating. Comforting because it's familiar, suffocating because it leaves little room for growth or authenticity. You don't realize how much you're shrinking until someone finally asks what you want and you don't know how to answer. not because you don't have desires, but because you've pushed them so far down they've become quiet, distant, and hard to reach. People who struggle to say no often forget their own preferences. They forget what they enjoy, what they need, what feels right. They've practiced putting others first for so long that turning inward feels unnatural, even uncomfortable. And when they finally try to say no, guilt rushes in like a flood. It's an irrational guilt, but it feels real, like failure, like letting someone down. Even when the refusal is reasonable, even when the request was unfair, the guilt arrives because it's tied to the identity they've built around being agreeable. The mind carries old emotional memories like echoing shadows. If someone grew up feeling responsible for others' emotions, that responsibility doesn't disappear with age. It lingers in the body, lives in the reflex, and surfaces every time they imagine someone being upset with them. The fear isn't about the present moment, it's about reliving a dynamic that once felt unavoidable. There's a particular loneliness in being the person everyone depends on. People admire you for being reliable, but they rarely ask how you're doing. They thank you for being helpful, but they rarely consider the cost. They lean on you, but they rarely wonder how much weight you're already carrying. And you in turn don't speak up because speaking up feels like breaking an unspoken contract, the one that says, "I'll be easy, I'll be agreeable." But no matter how strong a person is, everyone has limits. Ignoring those limits catches up eventually. It shows up as irritability, burnout, emotional disengagement. It shows up as resentment, even if unintended. It shows up as a quiet sense of being unseen. People who can't say no start to feel invisible in their own lives, not because others don't care, but because they never give others the chance to truly see them. They often convince themselves they don't mind doing things. They tell themselves the favor isn't a big deal, that they're helping because they're kind, but deep down they feel the emotional drain. They feel quiet resentment building, not anger toward others, but frustration with themselves for not choosing differently. You can only ignore your inner voice for so long before it pushes back. That voice grows quieter over the years, but it never disappears. It waits, it whispers in moments of stillness. Learning to say no isn't about becoming harsh or distant. It isn't about building walls or rejecting people. It's about learning to exist without fear. It's recognizing that your needs matter as much as anyone else's. It's realizing that protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's responsible, healthy, and necessary for emotional survival. Saying no is not an act of conflict. It's an act of clarity. Many who struggle with refusal imagine consequences far heavier than anything that would actually happen. They imagine losing relationships, deeply disappointing people, creating conflict where none would occur. But these fears are based not in reality, but in past emotional experiences. If you look closely, you'll find that people who can't say no often grew up in environments where emotional safety depended on being cooperative. Maybe a parent had unpredictable reactions. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe approval was given only when they were obedient or helpful. The child in such a world learns to adapt quickly, to read emotional cues instinctively, to soften themselves to avoid conflict. As adults, these patterns remain even when circumstances change. The brain remembers what once kept you safe, even if it's now holding you back. Yet beneath the layers of fear, there's another truth. Most people want authenticity from those they care about. They don't want someone who's always agreeable. They want someone honest, grounded, who knows their limits. A person who never says no becomes unpredictable in their emotional availability. People don't always trust an automatic yes. They sense the hesitation beneath it, even if it's subtle. Saying no actually creates healthier relationships. It brings balance. It sets clear expectations. It lets others know where you stand and teaches them how to treat you. When someone begins to say no, even in small ways, they start to feel something they haven't felt in a long time, a sense of their own presence. It's the feeling of returning to themselves after being absent within their own decisions for years. There's a moment that happens when someone says no for the first time after a lifetime of yeses. Their voice sounds unfamiliar, their chest tightens. Their mind races, but after the moment passes, something softens inside, a quiet relief, a realization that the world didn't fall apart. The relationship didn't collapse, the fear was louder than reality. With each no that follows, they begin to reclaim a part of themselves. Not suddenly, not dramatically, gradually, the same way the erosion occurred, they begin to feel a subtle shift in their sense of identity. They start noticing what they actually want. They begin separating genuine desires from conditioned obligations. They pick up the fragments of themselves left behind in all the previous yeses. This reclaiming of the self isn't selfishness. It's healing, it's growth, it's the process of becoming an emotionally whole person. People who can't say no often have strong empathy for others. What they lack is empathy for themselves. Learning to say no restores that balance. There's a quiet strength in it, not loud or aggressive, but steady and gentle. It comes from knowing your limits, respecting your own time, acknowledging that your emotional energy is not infinite. When a person starts honoring their boundaries, their relationships become more genuine. They become more present. They stop feeling resentful because they stop abandoning themselves. It also shifts how others perceive them. People begin to understand that their time has value, their presence has value, their effort isn't to be taken for granted. Because of that, the person who once felt invisible becomes more respected, not less. Saying no doesn't push people away, it filters who truly values you. It's transformative to realize that relationships built on your silence don't sustain you, they drain you. That's the shift that changes everything, the one that liberates. With time, something unexpected happens. The guilt fades, not instantly but slowly. The emotional reflex weakens. The mind begins to understand that refusing someone isn't the same as hurting them, that setting limits isn't the same as creating conflict, that protecting your energy isn't the same as being selfish. The person begins to feel a sense of power they've never known before, the power of living in alignment with their truth. You start to feel the difference between a yes that drains you and a yes that comes from a genuine place. You begin to see how much emotional space opens up when you stop overextending yourself. You notice that small things feel lighter. You feel more present in conversations, more grounded in your decisions. Over time, saying no becomes less about avoiding exhaustion and more about honoring who you are. It becomes a way of shaping your life with intention, making sure your time, energy, and presence go to the things and people that truly matter. Here's the quiet truth behind it all. The moment you start saying no, the world doesn't collapse. It expands, you gain time, you gain clarity, you gain yourself. The version of you who always said yes was trying their best, trying to survive, trying to be loved. But the version of you who learns to say no begins to live. You start attracting people who appreciate your boundaries instead of those who benefit from your lack of them. You feel more authentic in your interactions. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop shrinking to fit into emotional spaces that weren't built for you. And for the first time in a long time, you begin to feel what it's like to simply be, to exist without obligation, to breathe without pressure, to show up because you want to, not because you feel you have to. It's a quiet freedom, but one that changes everything. Eventually, you reach a place where saying no feels natural, like an act of alignment rather than defiance, like choosing yourself, not rejecting others. And in that place, you rediscover something you may not have felt since childhood: your own presence, your own preferences, your own voice, the part of you that existed before the world taught you to soften every edge. That is the deepest transformation of all, the return to your inner self after years of losing pieces of it in every yes that didn't belong to you. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more insights, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Your support helps bring more meaningful content your way's video. Subscribe for more insights and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Your support helps bring more meaningful content your way.